Welcome to How to Sell More. Today, we're talking about commission structures and how they impact both recruiting and retaining your top salespeople with the one, the only Jordana Matsos. Now, Jordana's background is extremely impressive. She has over 20 years of corporate sales experience that includes roles like VP of Strategy and Sales at Pet Health, VP of Sales at a tech startup Foodie, Director of Sales at Shutterstock, and her experience section on LinkedIn just goes on and on and on. She's amazing. But today, she's actually the founder of Hirequity, a sales-focused recruitment agency that helps organizations build, recruit, and retain stronger sales teams. I don't think there's anyone on the planet that is in a better position to have the conversation we are about to have. So without further ado, I am Mark Drager. Let's get into it. So Jordana, we are bringing you in here today because you are the expert on all things recruiting. And we were talking a little bit right before we hit record, and I was asking you, how the heck did you get into recruiting? And you mentioned that you have a degree in HR, which I didn't even know was a thing. I guess I should have. That's a thing, is it? Degree in HR?
Well, not that it matters to me, but for your education enthusiasts, it would be a diploma in HR. And it is a thing. But back in the day, it really wasn't, because you used to just be like an administrative professional, and that was HR.
So this is what makes you such an awesome expert at this. And audience, listen up, because we're going to cover some real tactics in terms of how to build commission structures, to recruit better salespeople, and as well to hold on to those top sales talent. So we're going to get all into that in a second. But what I find interesting about you is you have this background in HR. You didn't like it. It wasn't for you. So what do? You go into sales, and now you spent the last 4 or 5 years 100% focused on recruiting. So I feel like you have seen all areas of the business. You get the sales team side, you get the recruitment side, you also get then what like HR might be dealing with, and you've seen it all.
You are bang on. And most people will tell me that. They're like, I have never seen someone that's done sales in HR before. Operations in HR, yes, but not sales in HR. And I get it, because normally those aren't two departments that agree on a lot, other than when it's time to fire someone.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Having seen both sides of that, sales and HR, what does HR need to do better that they can learn from sales? And what does sales do that they can actually learn from HR?
HR needs to be more vocal and proactive with their data. The data that HR has on the employees is unbelievable. So the information that HR can give to the business to better direct how profitability happens within a sales department and how to retain people is unbelievable, and they don't. And on the flip side, most sales leaders that I've worked with have no idea about the legality around conversations that they're having with employees, how to properly interview, and how to properly navigate through constructive criticism. So I think if they talked a little bit more, then they'd have a wonderful marriage.
What data is this that HR is sitting on? Like, what are the types of data? What is the insight, and what should we be looking at?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, at the very basis of the data they're sitting on is attraction data, right? So where are the people that are applying for these jobs coming from? What industries are they coming from? What are their backgrounds? What are their educational backgrounds? What's their previous compensation look like? So they could be advising on compensation metrics, commission metrics, salary metrics, geolocations of where people should be coming from. And then throughout the progression of the life cycle that these people are in their jobs, normally you think you can go to HR for something. Oh, I'm having trouble with my manager, or, I need some assistance with my career progression. They have all of this data, and then exits as well. Normally companies will do exit interviews. And if you're saying, I left because I'm not making commissions, I left because the salary is too low, and HR isn't taking that data and bringing it back to the business to inform them, you're going to keep having this cycle of churn. It's really frustrating. And on the sales end of things, I mean, sales leaders are hearing, the good sales leaders are hearing from their sales team all the time about challenges in the market, challenges with customers, prospecting challenges, issues that are happening around retention, operations and marketing challenges. And no one really has the appetite to listen unless it's coming from a sales leader.
Are there organizations or companies, or is there a way that they've structured this type of because the silos tend to kill us, right? We've talked a lot on the podcast, and it's been really popular for the last few years to talk about the alignment needed between marketing and sales. Marketing's generating the leads, but they're not close to customers. Sales are close to customers, but they're not generating leads. There's often a mismatch, and it really tends to tank conversions and campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the first time I have ever heard anyone speak about the fact that there's insight between HR and between sales managers, or even between the business leaders. And I could see definitely the benefit of this, but who is doing this well? And you don't have to give specifics, but who's doing this well, and how do they structure those conversations?
Enterprise corporations are doing this a lot better than the mid-level and the SMBs.
Okay, so Fortune 500, Fortune 100, they have the systems, they have the people hours, and they're actually taking the time to be able to dig into this data and leverage it.
You got it. And if you look at just salary and commissions as it pertains to sales and HR, because that is the basis of most conversations that are happening and where alignment needs to happen. If you think about it, when a sales manager wants to hire someone and HR has created a list of competencies, and they've also created a list of benchmark data on salaries, which normally comes from two different resources and is outdated the second that it hits the market, because it doesn't account for all of the variety of influences that we have now. But if you just look at those two baseline level areas where sales and HR need to align, the biggest challenge becomes sales leaders who say, I want to hire this sales rep, this account executive, but they tell me they need 95, 100K. And HR says, oh, sorry, but our grid for this says that they need to only be between 75 and 85. Say goodbye to them, right? And that's the frustrating part with the enterprise organizations. But at least the enterprise organizations have done the work on that data to know what the on-target earnings should be, how the commission plan should be structured, and what the salary grid should be. Whereas I find the medium and the small businesses, it's all over the place. So you'll bring one person on at 60K, and then 3 months later, you'll bring another person on at 85K. And don't think for a goddamn second those two people aren't going to talk. Like, come on, they do.
100%. Now, I was at a conference in Tampa back in September. Someone gave a presentation specifically on the fact that enterprise level organizations tend to be very good at building out the team, the org chart, and holding positions that are in fact empty. Let's call them ghost positions. But when you're dealing with a small business, a medium-sized business, whatever it might be, you tend to operate much more on trust. And they were breaking down this idea that if you brought on a junior level person, let's say it's an advertising agency, let's say it's a junior level media person, and they happen to report to the head strategist. Mm-hmm. When you ask them about their career progression, you might say, so what job do you want? And they say, well, I want to be the head strategist, because it's the only job they can see. It's the only job they can anticipate. But between being a junior advertising person or media placement person and a head strategist, there's probably 5 or 6 different steps that might be sitting empty. They are empty seats. Mm-hmm. And those 5 or 6 different steps of these empty seats are sitting in different salary bands with different levels of responsibility. And they were actually speaking about the fact, exactly what you're saying. Enterprise is very good at setting up these structures and these levels and being able to move people up through seniority and give them more responsibility, even if it doesn't mean now suddenly you're a people manager or what have you.
Yeah.
Is this something that more of us in the small, medium, sub $100 million a year space, is this something that we should be really learning from and putting time and resources into?
I think so. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was at a company once that had 50 people, and they were about 5 years old, and they had about $20 million in top line revenue. And when I joined as a VP of sales, and there was no HR manager. And when I went to my COO and said, where's our HR division? Here are all of the things that I need to do, and I need to speak with someone about that. And one of them was to create a commission plan, because there wasn't a commission plan, believe it or not. The answer that I got was, well, we're only 50 people. We haven't hit that number yet where we need to have an HR department. Well, what the hell is that number? I've never heard of what that number is, because the problem that I have in small organizations, I've rarely seen it done well, where in your example, Mark, you have that junior ad rep that's reporting into the head strategist. and they're actually getting all the learning, all the development that they need, and all of the time, energy, coaching, mentorship from that head strategist. And you might argue, well, that's a good thing because it's going to accelerate their learning. I would argue it's not a good thing because if you ever want to leave that small infrastructure and you want to go into a more corporate enterprise infrastructure, you're going to get your ass kicked by the people that are there because there's so many fundamentals that you haven't learned yet because you didn't get that opportunity because you're building the plane as it's flying.
Listeners may have heard the little air quotes that Jordana just gave, but yeah, there's pros and cons to each business model. So let's talk about compensation models. So I always see, I see things a bit differently. Whenever I go to market for a new role, I always feel like we're dating. And while I want to, be true to who we are, I want to sell the position. I want to sell the opportunity. I want people to want to come and work for me and want to come in here. And so, but smaller businesses, again, we're talking about these medium-sized spaces. We tend to be a little over-generous, in fact, because we want that person for $85K while we're busy offering someone else $60. And so how do we approach compensation so that way we can bring in the very best talent? Because truthfully, that's what matters most, right? Value for dollars should be more important than top line dollars or whatever, if you follow what I mean.
Yeah. Mark, you started that statement with one of the most important things that I think can be said, which is...
good or bad?
No, good.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, you understand that you need to sell your business when you're bringing in sales or marketing people. And you understand that you might not have this brand name that's recognizable, but you can certainly still have an employer value proposition. Because if you think about it, people that are joining a company nowadays, especially in the group that I see that are kind of 27, 28 and under, they are, yes, absolutely looking for a fair wage and a fair commission plan, but they also want to work for something that's meaningful. So if you're in a situation where you can't offer as much salary and commission as maybe your larger competitors are, then you really need to dig in on the other benefits of wanting to work at that organization. But I will tell you right now, 100% of the companies that reach out to me that are, I would say, $1 million in revenue or less, they are asking me, what's happening in the market for salaries? What's happening in the market for commissions? Should I go on gross profit, gross margin? Should I go on total sales revenue? Like, how do I set this up so it's incentivizing people? And my response to them is always the same. And again, they never know the answer, Mark. What's the on-target earnings? And they'll say, well, what does that mean? And I'll say, well, at success, what should this person be earning? And they say, I don't know. What should they be? How have you not done this as a business? You have to sit down and figure out your profitability and your revenue metrics, because there's an old philosophy that you need to come in and cover your costs, right? So if you think about that, if I'm offered $100,000 a year job and my costs have to do with, not just my salary, but car plan and benefits and onboarding and all of the other things, then that company might say that I've been able to cover my costs when I've been able to sell at least $150,000 worth of products or services. But they never sit down and figure out how.
Well, but that would be gross revenue. That wouldn't even tie in.
No,
that wouldn't tie in gross profit margins or
nothing.
So that 140K investment or 150K investment you're making, if you're sitting at, well, let's just make it easy, 30 or 50% gross profit, then you need 300,000 in revenue, and that's even before you're making any money.
That's exactly it. And the other part about the gross revenue, gross profit model is I will see founders or CEOs, CROs, CSOs that just arbitrarily say, this is the model that we want to follow. But the challenge is they haven't answered the basic questions of, are you actually able to measure it at the territory level? Number one. Number two, does the sales rep have any influence whatsoever over the product or services cost? And so I find, going back to your question about why I think the enterprise organizations have done a better job of that, is because they have more data and analytics around that to inform how the commission plan should be set out. Whereas the smaller businesses, they're just kind of plucking these numbers out of air and saying, I think this will work.
So would you recommend, let's say that you said $1 million below, that's a fairly small business.
Yeah.
And I can understand why you're figuring that out. But let's say that you know your product, you know your offer, you know your audience or your customer base, you know how to sell this, you know all that stuff. You're bringing someone in. Would you recommend that we understand target salary level and reverse engineer commission structure? But should we also be looking at lifetime value of customer, so that way maybe it's not even just about the initial first sale, it's about the long tail? I know insurance organizations where they'll pay out 2 or 3 years worth of commissions just to the agent who happens to bring in the business because they know they're going to hold on to the business for an average of 8 or 10 years. And so what, I guess, KPIs should we be using at a big level to be able to create these commission structures?
Oh God, cost per acquisition, lifetime value, MQL to SQL. So your marketing qualified lead to your sales qualified lead. You have to look at whether you want new business or existing business, which is more important to you. You have to look at your retention rates. So all of these metrics that you have, whether you know them or whether you don't know them, they need to come into play before you set up a commission plan. Because for you to just say, I'm going to bring someone in on a base plus what? Like, what's important to you? Do you want new business? Do you want existing of growth? Like, what is it that you want? So yes, you have to look at likely about 5 to 6 different metrics involving your finance team, your HR team, your marketing team, and your sales team.
And when working with salespeople specifically, who tend to be, I mean, they're there to make money.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, help people and help the organization, but they're there to make money. And so should you always look at the goal and the outcome of you want and simply stack that one activity? Like, I want you to do this activity for new business, so I'm going to create the commission structure on that one thing, and I'm not going to hope for anything else. Because I have to imagine that whatever you set up the commission to is the thing they're going to optimize to, and they're going to ignore every other aspect of the business, right?
Salespeople are smart, and you're exactly right. They go where the money is. So no, I don't think that it needs to be an all or nothing plan. The best plans that I have seen actually have a percentage that's based on a few different metrics. So one could be a percentage that's based on growth. The other one could be a percentage that's based on new, rather than just saying to that person, we want you to go and get all net new. We want you to go and do all existing of growth. We want you to focus on RFPs. And the other thing that comes into play is, we're making an assumption that maybe you're a business that just sells one certain product or one certain solution. When you have like an enterprise level company, like an Oracle and SAP, all these software companies that are selling licenses and add-ons and all these different solutions, you need to incentivize people to want to do that, or they're just going to go to that one thing and keep hammering that one thing.
So when we're looking for talent, you just mentioned, SaaS versus enterprise level software versus all kinds of different things. Is it more important in your experience to find people who have a specific background in your vertical selling your type of product or service to your type of audience, or are these transferable skills and you're really looking more for hustle and attitude and other things?
I feel like this is a trap question, Mark. Damn
Is it? Oh.
I mean that actually sarcastically, because everyone wants industry experience, subject matter expertise, industry experience, book of business, transferable skills. Man, I'm telling you, it's probably less than 10% of the clients that come to me that say, hey, we don't mind. We'll teach someone. We've got a great learning and development team, great training and onboarding, great coaching. They don't. No one has time anymore. And especially in a SaaS-based company, SaaS metrics, software metrics, are different than metrics at a supply chain company, at a healthcare company. And if you've never had to deal with MRR or ARR, annual recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue, subscription-based models and things like that, it takes a bit to kind of, get your mind around that. And so I understand why they ask for it. Sure, if you do research, lead gen, business development activities, certain tech tools that you're using, prospecting activities, presentation skills, yeah, those are transferable, but you don't have the contacts within that industry. So I still say that sometimes, saying to someone who spent 10 years working for an industrial company as an account executive who wants to then jump into software and says, no problem, I can do it. You can, it's going to take time.
And so for those of us looking to really make the most of every opportunity, when everybody's going north, you should head south, right? When everyone's going left, you should go right. So if everyone tends to go like, I want people with all of the experience, is the real opportunity for us to develop, to be a little bit more patient, to give people a little more time, find those amazing people who are willing to do the work to learn this and give them that expertise? Or is it like, nah, just do what everyone else is doing?
If you have the infrastructure to support that, and by that, I mean,
I guess I'm asking, is it worth taking the time for our businesses to build this?
Oh yeah.
Because you build it once, and then now it opens up whole new talent pools for a very long time. And if you bring this and make this part of your culture, it gives you an edge, but it will come at a cost of a year or two of kind of figuring it out, I imagine.
You got it. Because if you don't do that, then you are squeezing out the percentage of the market who would come to your company perhaps for less money than what the competition. And if you build it once, then you're just tweaking it. I've done so many different posts on this, especially with specific industries. If you keep poaching from the competition, you're not getting innovative, creative ways of doing things. You're going to end up paying more, and you're going to start to get an aging workforce. So yes, I agree with you on that.
Okay. One other question I'm thinking, as long as we're focusing right now on the sales team, I have struggled with trying to manage my expectations of how much should I give? How easy should I make this role? How easy should I make this job? And far too often, I think leaders go, well, I'm going to, you go find your own leads and you work your own leads and you ask me if you need sales tools and you write your own content and you do your own follow-ups and you do your own closes and you're going to figure out the onboarding. And it's like, somehow we expect of a rep to do every step of everything. And while I don't agree with that, at the other time, I've had people even on my team where it's like, I'm generating the leads for you. I'm developing all the templates. I am making your job so freaking easy. Yeah. I don't feel like you're doing very much and you're still like, I'm doing everything for you. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Where between these two sides of things, what's the right amount and how do we analyze that?
Where's the balance? So on the opposite end, gone are the days where you throw a phone book. Remember a phone book? Where you throw a phone book at someone and
do you remember those plastic things where you would, I guess the Rolodex, right? Like you would go to like H and hit a button and it would pop open. Do you remember those?
Or you had like your business card folder and you looked through.
Yeah, that's called the top. That was the top drawer of my desk. I was oh, business card into the drawer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So gone are those days. And we have the technology and the tools now to be able to make someone's life not just easier, but working smarter. So if you have the affordability to be able to give that to your team, I still highly suggest using that. And one of the top questions I'll get from sales reps are, what is the tech stack of what I'm walking into? And they'll want to hear the 4 or 5 different kinds of tools, automation tools, lead gen tools, a CRM, things like that, outreach tools. But on the flip side of it, sometimes I find that as a business owner and as a founder, when you start to grow to 30, 40, 50, 100 people, and you were doing the sales at the beginning, it's hard for you to step back because you think, well, if I step away from this relationship, can I pass it over to this sales rep? So I tend to err on the side of, if you're hiring SDRs and you want them to do lead gen and meetings booked, teach them how to do it and let them go. You're going to have to step away and allow them to make mistakes. But if you have the tools, use the tools. Like, I am a big fan of doing that. I don't think you should have open territories. I hear that a lot. Oh, this person can come in, they can sell anywhere and everything. Oh, how do you manage that? Oh, our wonderful CRM that we never update, that basically has phone numbers in it and email addresses. No, someone's going to leave you.
So these are things that makes your organization more marketable and attractive. The tech stack, the management structure, knowing that they're going to have an opportunity for leads or to be able to work the leads. And I guess the more professional it is, the more confidence they may have in you.
It is. It's that basic. It is.
Okay. 2 more questions. I could pepper you with questions all day. Okay. So we've spoken about the fact offline when we were speaking a few weeks ago about mistakes people make when they have great sales teams, right? Like you have some great sales members and we lose them to other companies poaching them and we lose them. And it's like, it's so hard to keep really great talent, it seems. Why is that?
The top 3 reasons, I'll answer it by saying this. The top 3 reasons that someone will call me and they're looking to make a move is you've changed their commission plan mid-flight and it's in a negative manner and you've given them no notice on it. That's why someone would be looking to move. The second reason is, and it sounds cliche, but you're not showing them any ability of how they're going to be able to grow. And I don't just mean like how I get from an AE from a sales manager or how I get from a digital marketer to a CMO. I mean, like how I'm actually developing skills and learning on the job. And then that last reason that I hear about is dysfunctional leadership, right? Like either my manager is so busy, they have no time for me whatsoever, or my manager is so involved in what I'm doing, I can't even breathe.
Okay. So there's a happy medium there.
Yeah.
I when I started my agency in 2006, the first 5 months, Well, the first few years, but the first 5 months in particular did not go well. And I found myself looking at the fact that it's like, oh, I only have 3 months more until I have to close this up and go bankrupt or figure something out. And through my network, I hired a coach, Frank Milner, amazing guy. He's gone on to do some really amazing things now. But he used to be, I think, regional or national sales manager for Aramark. And I remember asking him, I don't think this is confidential. Sorry, Frank. I remember asking him at the time, oh, why did you end up leaving? And it's always stuck with me. And he said, you know what? When I came in, they were doing terribly. And in my first few years, I consistently exceeded plan. I consistently did more and more business. I took them from here to to levels that leadership never anticipated. But you know what? At one point, because when I came in, I had no commission cap.
Yeah.
But at one point, they felt like somehow I was making too much money.
Yep.
And so they put a commission cap on, and I lost 40 or 50% of my salary. I was making them 3, 4, 5, 8 times more than they ever anticipated. And yet, for whatever reason, they felt like I was just making too much money, and I left. And I was 23, when I started my business, and I remember him telling me the story, and I was like, oh, and that always stuck with me. And it's because, and I understand it. It's because if you look at someone who's got the sales role figured out and they're delivering and all this stuff, I understand objectively. It's like, well, they're doing their job. But emotionally, if you're a leader and you're looking and you're like, this person's making, I don't know, $640,000 a year to sell stuff? That seems like too much, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
When we're in this situation and as leaders, as business owners, when we're feeling this, what do we do? What do we really do? Do we just go they're making money, I'm making money, let's live? Or what do we do?
Yeah, you do. Because at the crux of it is, again, it goes back to planning. And you didn't anticipate that sales rep was going to bring Amazon on or some behemoth. But when you look at the structure that you just mentioned, and that sales rep has been doing everything that you've asked them to do, and there's a horrible cliche, and I know animal rights advocates are going to hate this, but it's that you whip the horse that runs the fastest. And you do. And these salespeople feel it, and they do everything for you. And then when they go and they bring in that whale for you and you say, okay, great, but we're going to cap you at this, or we've got to change it because we didn't anticipate and plan for that. That's a recipe for them walking straight out the door.
Okay. They're helping us win. We can't get upset that they outpaced what we expected, right?
No, you know what? Where I've seen it done properly is if it's an astronomical number. I've seen companies that have negotiations with the sales rep in terms of, okay, we're going to pay you out on this, and this is what it's going to look like, and we're going to change the commission plan to incentivize this because we both learned here. And I think a lot of sales reps are open to that. But what they're not open to is, we didn't expect this to happen. You're not going to get this. We profit off of it. See you later. And again, that's big business. They can do it. But watch your sales rep leave.
Oh, this has been such a great conversation. I will be watching this back and taking notes because I'm learning a lot. So Jordana Matsos, you are the founder of Hirequity. And if you guys need to reach out to her, the best place to go is just head over to LinkedIn. You can totally look her up. She's also will be listed in the show notes, but I know that you're super active on LinkedIn. But here's the final question for you. And I love asking everyone this question. What is your number one tip or strategy to help us sell more?
My number one tip, again, going back to commission plans. And you mentioned the philosophy around commission plans. Most leaders will want the commission plan to be challenging, yet achievable. And so if you want to maintain a high level of attraction of getting people into your organization, and you want them to stay and you want them to grow, continue to make those plans challenging yet attainable. Because if you take a look at your team and no one is able to hit their commission plan, you're going to start to see attrition. People come to work for money. We want to make money. Businesses want to profit. Sales reps want to feel like they're a part of that. So show them the path.
Okay, to wrap up this conversation, let's get into the 3-point roundup. Number one, there are huge gains that we can make if we can align HR with sales goals. So just the fact that HR departments have all of this data on employees and performance, and that can significantly impact the effectiveness of a sales team. If these two departments are not working together, communicating, trading information back and forth, and frankly, working together to build the most effective and productive sales team possible, we are missing out. Number two, your compensation plan needs to be strategically developed. So yes, market rates and company profitability and the specifics of the sales role, all of those things are important. But we have an opportunity here. We have the opportunity to zero in on the activities we want our sales team to do to lead to our one clear goal. Because if we tie our compensation to that goal or to those activities, they will do it. Whereas on the other side, if we want to diversify their efforts and not just focus on one aspect of the sales process, we can add in a mix of incentives. And so understanding that our comp plans will really help direct where our sales teams focus their time, energy, and efforts, that's an amazing strategic tool. And number 3, this is the big one. Companies often struggle to retain the top salespeople because of issues like changing commission plans unexpectedly or a lack of growth opportunities or dysfunctional leadership. And so, yes, we're talking about comp plans, but if we're struggling in these areas, if we're changing things constantly, if there's no growth, if people can't hit the salaries that we expected them to hit, or we're just not strong leaders, let's fix those things first before we worry about anything else. And so I want to thank Jordana Matsos for joining us. You can learn more about her by heading over to LinkedIn. Go ahead and give her a follow. You can also check her out on Instagram at Jordana_Matsos. Now, while you're over there on LinkedIn, checking Jordana out, while you're over there on LinkedIn, checking Jordana out, you can also give me a follow as well. My name is Mark Drager. One last thing, if you made it this far into the show, you really should subscribe. Now, you may be saying, okay, why Mark? Well, each week I share practical strategies and tips, just like what Jordana shared with us today, to supercharge your business growth and to boost sales. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. I'm Mark Drager. We will catch you in the next one.